The voice cuts through the morning air like a blade scraping metal. And who might you be, Miss Technician Coffee Girl, for the real soldiers? The laughter erupts instantly. 8 Navy SEALs, all broad shoulders and confidence, fill the narrow corridor outside the UAV control room at Naval Station Mayport. At their center stands Admiral Drayton Cross, silver eagles gleaming on his collar, arms crossed like he owns not just this base, but the entire Atlantic Fleet. The woman at the console doesn't flinch. She's smaller than any of them, hair pulled back in a regulation bun, wearing a plain uniform with no rank insignia. Her hands remain steady on the keyboard, fingers hovering over keys that control a $15 million reconnaissance drone currently flying somewhere over contested waters. Cross steps closer. The scent of aftershave and arrogance fills the cramped space. Behind him, his team exchanges grins. This is entertainment before the morning brief. Fresh meat. Someone new to put in their place. I asked you a question, miss. His voice drops lower, theatrical. Rank. What's your rank? She turns her head slowly. No rush, no panic. Her eyes are the color of winter ocean, and when they meet his, something flickers across Cross's face. Just for a heartbeat. Then it's gone, replaced by that familiar smirk. Higher than yours, sir. Her voice is quiet, level, each word measured. You just don't know it yet. The corridor goes silent. Someone coughs, a boot scuffs tile. The hum of the air conditioning suddenly seems deafening. Then Cross throws his head back and laughs. It's the kind of laugh that invites everyone else to join in. And they do. Nervous at first, then louder, eager to be part of the joke. Cute. He leans against the door frame, blocking her exit. Real cute. Maybe I'll give you a uniform after you polish my boots. The woman returns to her screen. Her breathing follows a deliberate pattern. 4 counts in. Hold for 4. 4 counts out. Hold for 4. In the corner of the room, hunched over a maintenance log, Master Chief Garrett Boone watches this exchange from beneath heavy gray eyebrows. He's 62 years old, been in the Navy since before most of these kids were born. Desert Storm, Somalia, Afghanistan. The kind of resume that doesn't fit on paper. And he's seen enough to know when something doesn't add up. The way she holds that tablet, 3 fingers on the base thumb and index supporting the edge. That's not how civilians grip equipment. That's not even how regular Navy handles gear. That's the hold they teach at advanced tactical schools, the kind where you learn to operate under fire, where dropping your equipment means mission failure, where muscle memory has to override panic. Boone's pen stops moving. He doesn't look up, doesn't give anything away, but his jaw tightens. The woman saves her work with 3 quick keystrokes. No hesitation, no need to check the manual. The encryption protocols on these systems change monthly, require authentication codes that take most operators 5 minutes to input correctly. She does it in under 10 seconds. You know what I think? Cross pushes off the door frame, steps fully into the control room. His team follows, filling the space with testosterone and cologne. I think someone made a mistake letting you in here. This is a secure facility, SEAL operations only. She stands. The movement is economical, balanced. When her hands fold behind her back, they settle into a position that's exactly regulation. Not approximately, not close enough. Exactly at ease, the way it's drilled into you until your body remembers it decades later. I'll make this simple. Cross is enjoying himself now, playing to his audience. You've got about 30 seconds to explain what a tech support girl is doing with access to my UAV systems before I call security and have you escorted out. 28 seconds, Lieutenant Cade Merrick adds helpfully. He's young, ambitious, the kind who laughs loudest at his commanding officer's jokes. She reaches into her chest pocket. The movement makes Cross's hand drift toward his sidearm. Instinct. But she's only pulling out a laminated card, standard issue. The kind every contractor and civilian employee carries on base. Technical consultant, she says, handing it to him, cleared for all non-combat systems. Cross examines the card like it might be counterfeit, holds it up to the light, checks the holographic seal. Everything's in order. It has to be. She wouldn't be here otherwise, but something about this doesn't sit right with him. And men like Cross don't like things that don't sit right. Well, Miss Consultant, he flicks the card back at her. It hits her chest and falls. She doesn't move to catch it. I don't care what this says. You stay in your lane. That means you don't touch tactical systems. You don't access classified files. You fix computers when we tell you they are broken. And you stay out of the way when real operators are working. Understood? Understood, sir. She bends to retrieve her ID. as she straightens her sleeve, rides up just enough to expose the inside of her left forearm. There's a scar there. Not the clean line of surgery, something jagged, irregular. The kind that comes from shrapnel, from being too close when something explodes. Warrant Officer Quinn Hale sees it. His eyes narrow. He's been deployed enough times to recognize blast patterns on human skin. But Cross is already moving, already dismissing her from his mind. He's got a briefing in 15 minutes, a training exercise to oversee. A whole base of people who snap to attention when he walks past. Why waste time on some contractor who probably got her job through connections rather than capability? Lieutenant Merrick. Cross pauses at the door. Make sure our friend here gets the message. This control room is off limits unless she's specifically requested, and that needs to come through my office first. Yes, sir. Merrick grins at the woman. Don't worry, miss. We'll find you something more suitable. Maybe the commissary needs help, or there's always laundry. More laughter. They file out, voices fading down the corridor. Someone mentions breakfast. Someone else has a joke about contractors. The door swings shut. The control room returns to its baseline hum. Servers processing data. Cooling fans pushing air. Outside, through reinforced windows, the Florida sun climbs higher over runways and hangars and the distant blue immensity of the Atlantic. Boone hasn't moved from his corner. He's still holding his pen, still pretending to review maintenance logs. But his eyes track the woman as she returns to her station, settles back into her chair, pulls up the same diagnostic screen she was running before the interruption. Her hands return to the keyboard. That grip again, that specific, unmistakable hold. Been at it long, his voice is rough from decades of shouting over engine noise and gunfire. She doesn't startle, doesn't even pause in her typing. Long enough, Master Chief. She knows his rank without looking at his uniform. Interesting. Those encryption protocols. He taps his pen against the logbook. Most folks need the manual. Take them 10-15 minutes to authenticate properly. I've worked with similar systems before. Similar, Boone nods slowly. That's one word for it. She finally looks at him, really looks. And there's a calculation happening behind those eyes. An assessment of risk and necessity and how much this particular conversation might cost her. Is there something I can help you with, Master Chief? Just curious. He closes his logbook stands with the careful movements of a man whose knees remember too many parachute landings. Been in this Navy 43 years. Seen a lot of people come through. Seen a lot of specialists with clearances they shouldn't have. Technical consultants who know things they shouldn't know. He walks toward the door, pauses. Seen operators too, the real kind, the ones who don't advertise. She returns to her screen without responding. Boone opens the door, then stops. That breathing pattern, he says quietly. 4x4, that's combat stress management. They teach it at Bragg, at Coronado, at places most people have never heard of. He doesn't wait for confirmation. You have a good day, miss. The door clicks shut behind him. The woman's fingers remain steady on the keyboard, but her jaw tightens, just slightly, just enough. On her wrist, barely visible beneath her sleeve, a watch face displays the time in 24-hour format. But there's something else there too. A small button on the side. Recessed. Easy to miss unless you know to look for it. The kind of button that doesn't come standard on any commercial timepiece. She glances at it. Not yet. Not nearly yet. 3 months earlier, the sky over Syria burns orange and red smoke rising from the convoy like offerings to angry gods. Captain Alara Voss crawls through sand and blood and shattered metal. Her ears ring from the explosion. Everything sounds underwater, muffled, distant. 20 meters behind her, the lead Humvee is on fire. She can see Staff Sergeant Marcus Riley still strapped in the driver's seat. Not moving, never moving again. 10 meters to her right, Corporal Jamie Castellano lies face down in the dirt. The IED blasts threw her clear of the vehicle. Her weapon is still clutched in her hand. Her eyes are still open. Alara tries to stand. Can't. Her left leg won't take weight. She looks down, blood soaking through her fatigues. Shrapnel embedded in her thigh. She doesn't remember getting hit. Doesn't remember much after the world turned to fire and thunder. She drags herself toward cover. A rocky outcrop. 50 meters. Might as well be 50 miles. Her radio crackles, static. Then a voice distorted but recognizable. Eagle 6, this is command. We're showing no movement at your location. Confirm status. She reaches for her radio, fingers slick with blood. Can't get a grip. Command. Her voice is barely a whisper. Eagle 6 is down. All personnel, KIA or critical, need immediate medevac. The pause stretches too long. Copy that, Eagle 6, medevac en route, ETA 30 minutes. 30 minutes. She won't last 30 minutes. The world tilts, darkens at the edges. And in that darkness, something else. A memory. Not from Syria, from before. Fort Bragg, 2 years earlier. Master Chief Garrett Boone standing in front of a training class. 20 operators, all of them young, all of them thinking they're invincible. Combat isn't about being the strongest, Boone says. His voice carries that particular authority of someone who's earned every word through experience. It's about being the smartest, the most prepared, the one who refuses to quit when every instinct says to lie down and die. He walks between the rows, stops in front of Alara. You, he points at her. What's your edge? She meets his eyes. Patience, Master Chief, and memory? Elaborate. Patience means I wait for the right moment instead of forcing it. Memory means I learn from every mistake, mine and theirs. Boone nods, almost smiles. Good answer, Voss. Remember that when everything goes to hell, because it will go to hell, and when it does, the only thing keeping you alive is right here. He taps his temple. Not your weapon, not your armor, your mind. The memory fades. Syria rushes back, heat and pain and the coppery taste of blood. Alara forces her eyes open, forces her hand to move, reaches for her thigh, finds the shrapnel, grits her teeth and pulls. The scream that tears from her throat echoes across the desert. But the shrapnel comes free. She packs the wound with the gauze from her med kit, ties it tight with shaking hands. Not good, not even close to good, but enough to buy time. Above her, on a rooftop 400 meters away, a figure watches through a high-powered scope. The figure lowers the scope, pulls out a radio. Target is mobile. One survivor. Should I engage? The response crackles back. Negative. Let her crawl. Recovery team will find one body. Makes the story cleaner. Understood. The figure packs up, disappears into shadows. And Alara crawls, 1 meter, 2, 10. The sun beats down like a hammer. Her vision swims. But she crawls. Because Garrett Boone taught her that quitting isn't an option. Because 5 people are dead and someone needs to survive to tell their story. Because something about this mission felt wrong from the beginning and she needs to understand why. She crawls until the helicopter appears on the horizon. She crawls until hands lift her onto a stretcher. She crawls until unconsciousness finally claims her. And her last thought before the darkness takes her is simple. Someone did this. Someone sent us into that kill zone. And when I wake up, I'm going to find out who. Present day, Naval Station Mayport. 3 months into her assignment, and Alara has learned to make herself invisible. It's a skill, one they don't teach in standard operator training. You learn it in deep cover work, in the kind of missions where being noticed means being dead. She arrives at the base gym at 0500 every morning, before the SEALs, before the regular personnel. Just her and the weights and the slowly growing floor to dawn. Today is no different. She's halfway through her bench press routine when the door opens. Garrett Boone enters, maintenance coveralls, tool bag over his shoulder. He doesn't acknowledge her, just moves to the pull-up bar in the corner and begins his own workout. They exercise in silence for 20 minutes. Then Boone sets down his bag, walks over to her bench, stands there spotting without being asked. You're favoring your left leg, he says quietly. Old injury. Something like that. Syria, her hands freeze mid-press. The bar wobbles. Boone's hands come up, steadying it. Easy, he says. I'm not here to expose you. Just trying to understand who I'm working with. She completes the rep, racks the bar, sits up. You don't know me, Master Chief. No, but I know operators. Spent 30 years training them at Bragg before I retired. You've got all the markers. The breathing, the grip, the way you position yourself in every room to have eyes on the exits. He pauses. The scar tissue on your left thigh that you try to hide but can't quite manage when you do squats. Alara says nothing. Boone sits on the bench across from her. I also know, he continues, that contractors don't get the kind of clearances you have unless there's a reason. And technical consultants don't run combat stress breathing protocols unless they've been somewhere that required them. Maybe I just have anxiety. Maybe. He doesn't sound convinced. Or maybe you're here for the same reason I am. Because something about this place stinks and someone needs to figure out what. She studies him. Really studies him. Garrett Boone, 62 years old, Desert Storm veteran, 3 tours in Afghanistan, a retired Master Chief with enough commendations to fill a wall. Also on the books as a civilian maintenance contractor for the past 2 years. Also watching Admiral Cross with the same careful attention she's been using. "Why are you really here?" she asks. Boone reaches into his coveralls, pulls out a folded photograph, sets it on the bench between them. The photo shows 8 men in desert fatigues. Gulf War era judging by the gear. They're young, confident, the kind of confidence that comes before you learn what war really costs. January 1991, Boone says, 20 kilometers inside Iraq. Our convoy hit a minefield that wasn't supposed to be there. Intel said the route was clear. Intel was wrong. He points to the faces in the photo, one by one. Martinez, dead. Thompson, dead. Jackson, dead. O'Brien, dead. Sutherland, dead. Kim, dead. Rafferty, dead. His finger stops on the 8th man, himself, younger, unscathed. "I survived because I was in the tail vehicle, far enough back that when the lead Humvee detonated, I had time to bail out." He folds the photo, puts it away. 33 years I've carried that picture. 33 years wondering why our route was changed at the last minute. Why the intel update came through just 3 hours before we rolled out. Why it was marked as coming from a general I'd never heard of. Who's hiring him? Silas Brennan, lieutenant colonel back then, 2-star general now, JSOC oversight. The name hits Alara like a physical blow. General Silas Brennan, the officer who authorized her current mission, who suggested using a deceased operator for deep cover, who specifically recommended her for this assignment. "You know him," Boone says. "It's not a question." "I know of him." "Then you know he's dirty. Been dirty for 3 decades. And whatever Cross is doing here, Brennan's the one pulling the strings." Alara stands, walks to the window. Outside the base is waking up. Personnel moving between buildings, the ordinary machinery of military life grinding forward. "If you're right," she says slowly, "then Cross is just the visible hand. And Brennan is the brain." "Yes." "Why tell me this?" "Because," Boone says standing, "I'm 62 years old. I've got maybe one more mission left in me. And I'll be damned if I die without knowing why my team walked into that minefield. Why someone changed our route. Why 8 good men are in the ground while the man who killed them wears stars and gets saluted." He picks up his tool bag. "You're here hunting Cross. I'm here hunting Brennan. Seems to me our interests align." He walks to the door, pauses. "Also seems to me that a dead captain would be pretty motivated to make sure whoever killed her team pays for it." He leaves before she can respond. Alara stands alone in the gym, heart pounding, mind racing. Garrett Boone knows who she is, or at least who she was. Captain Alara Voss, KIA Syria 2022. Officially dead, buried with full honors. Memorial plaque at Arlington, except she's not dead. She's here. And she's about to make some very powerful people wish she'd stayed buried. The base dining facility at 00700 is controlled chaos. 300 personnel trying to fuel up before the day's operations begin. The smell of industrial eggs and coffee strong enough to strip paint. Conversations overlapping into white noise. Alara sits alone in a corner eating oatmeal that tastes like cardboards and institutional efficiency. Around her, conversations ebb and flow. Deployment stories. Complaints about training schedules. Speculation about upcoming assignments. She listens, files it away. Patterns within patterns. Who defers to whom? Which groups form natural alliances? Where the real power flows underneath the official hierarchy. Warrant Officer Quinn Hale enters with his maintenance team. Spots her. Whispers something to the men beside him. They look, laugh, keep walking. The oatmeal turns to paste in her mouth, but she keeps eating, keeps breathing in that steady 4-count rhythm. In through the nose, hold. Out through the mouth, hold. The way they taught her during Hell Week, during SEAL training, during the classified exercises where they break you down to see what remains when everything else is stripped away. Her watch displays the time, 13:37. She has a meeting scheduled for 1400. Routine check-in with the base IT director. Officially, it's about software updates and network security. Unofficially, it's a dead drop, a chance to pass information up the chain without electronic trails. She finishes her meal, clears her tray, walks across the base under the brutal Florida sun. The heat here is different than desert heat. Humid, oppressive. It soaks into your uniform and makes everything stick. The IT building is older construction, built back when the Navy thought concrete bunkers were the solution to everything. Inside, the air conditioning fights a losing battle against decades of inadequate ventilation. The director's office is on the second floor, behind a door with a nameplate that reads C.D.R. Ashford Locke, Information Systems. She knocks. Come in. Locke is 45 and looks 60. Too many years staring at screens, hunting for vulnerabilities, patching systems that were outdated when he inherited them. He's competent, dedicated, and completely unaware that the woman entering his office represents a classification level he's never been briefed on. Ah, good, right on time. He gestures to a chair stacked with technical manuals. Just move those. So we need to talk about the firewall updates. The new protocols from Cyber Command are a nightmare to implement with our current architecture. She moves the manuals, sits, pulls out her tablet. For 10 minutes, they have a legitimate conversation about network security, patch schedules, vendor compatibility, the kind of tedious technical discussion that makes most people's eyes glaze over. Then Locke leans back, rubs his eyes. I'm going to grab coffee. You want anything? I'm fine, thank you. He leaves. The door clicks shut. She has approximately 6 minutes. Locke is predictable, creature of habit. The break room is 2 floors down. He'll take the stairs because he's trying to get his steps in. Black coffee, 2 sugars. Exactly 6 minutes. She's timed it 3 times. She moves to his computer. It's logged in. Careless but typical. She navigates to a specific shared folder, buried 3 layers deep in the directory structure, creates a new file, encrypted, disguised as a system log, dumps the data she's collected, access patterns, file timestamps, user IDs that don't quite match official rosters, upload complete, delete local copies, clear recent file history. Return to her chair, 5 minutes, 40 seconds. Locke returns at 6 minutes, 15 seconds. Close enough. He's carrying 2 cups. Changed my mind, he says, handing her one. Figured you could probably use it. She accepts, sips. It's terrible coffee, government contract stuff that tastes like it was brewed through old boots. She drinks it anyway. So about those vendor compatibility issues. They finish their meeting. She leaves with a stack of documentation about firewall protocols that she'll never read and he'll never follow up on. The coffee cup goes in the trash outside. The real message is already racing up the chain of command, bouncing through encrypted servers, landing eventually on a desk at Fort Meade, where someone with more stars than Locke will ever see decides whether her intel justifies further action. The afternoon brings new indignities. Commander Ashford Locke's security team pulls her aside for additional ID verification. Perfectly legal, perfectly within regulations. Also perfectly obvious harassment. She stands patiently while they photograph her credentials. Run her fingerprints through databases she already knows she'll pass. Ask questions they already know the answers to. How long have you been on base? 3 months. And your previous posting? I'm a contractor. I don't have postings. Right, previous contract then. Classified. That makes them exchange looks. Civilians claiming classification is always suspicious. Usually it means they're lying. Sometimes it means they're telling the truth and it's above your clearance to verify. We'll need to confirm that. Contact the number on my clearance documentation. They will. They'll reach a very real office at a very real agency that will confirm she's exactly who she claims to be. The paperwork is immaculate. It has to be. People died to make this cover solid. By 1600, she's back at her temporary quarters. A small room in the contractor housing unit. Concrete walls. Metal frame bed. A desk and chair that were probably surplus from a Cold War-era submarine. She doesn't care. She's slept in worse. Done entire deployments in conditions that would break most civilians mentally before it ever touched them physically. She sits on the bed, allows herself 60 seconds of complete stillness. No 4-count breathing, no maintained composure. Just 60 seconds where she doesn't have to be the role. Then it's over. Back to work. Her tablet contains encrypted files that would cause a diplomatic incident if discovered. Training schedules, personnel rosters, supply chain logistics. Everything you'd need to plan an operation against this facility. Everything someone selling secrets would want to acquire. She's not here to protect those secrets. She's here to find who's already stealing them. The pieces are starting to fit. Cross's aggressive need to control access. Merrick's nervousness around anyone who might see things they shouldn't. Hale's technical knowledge that goes deeper than his official role requires. Any one of them could be the leak. All of them could be involved. The only way to know for certain is to wait for them to make a mistake. to push hard enough that they reveal themselves trying to push back, which means tomorrow needs to escalate. She needs to be in places she's not supposed to be, accessing systems that will trigger alerts, making enough noise that whoever's watching feels threatened enough to act. Outside her window, the sun sets over the Atlantic in streaks of orange and purple. Somewhere out there, submarines patrol in silence. Carrier groups project power. Young men and women put themselves between civilization and chaos because someone has to, and they're willing. Most of them are good, dedicated, honorable, but not all, never all. She sets an alarm for 0430. Early enough to be on base before most people arrive. Early enough to be in the control room when the overnight shift logs off and the day shift isn't quite ready. Early enough to see what happens when she stops being careful. Sleep comes easily. Years of training taught her to rest when possible because you never know when the next chance will come. The alarm pulls her back to consciousness 4 hours later with the gentle insistence of a knife at the throat. She dresses in the dark. Same plain uniform, same anonymous contractor appearance, runs through a mental checklist that's become automatic. ID card, tablet, tools. The watch with its hidden button that she still hasn't pressed. Not yet. The base at 0500 is a different world. Skeleton crew, night maintenance, a few insomniacs and early risers. She moves through the dim corridors like water, finding the path of least resistance. The control room is locked, but her access card works. Inside, the overnight operator is half asleep, monitoring automated systems that haven't required human intervention in hours. Morning, she says quietly. He startles. Jesus, morning. He's young, probably his first posting, still nervous around anyone who appears unexpectedly. You're early. Diagnostics run better with light system traffic. Right, yeah, makes sense. He's already packing up, eager to hand off responsibility and get to breakfast. Everything's green. Feeds are nominal. Had one hiccup on the satellite uplink around 0300, but it auto-corrected. I'll check the logs. Cool, I'm out then. He leaves. She's alone. The control room hums its familiar song. Servers processing endless streams of data. Cooling systems fighting entropy. She moves to the main console, pulls up system access logs, not the surface level stuff. The deep architecture, user authentication records, file transfer protocols, the digital fingerprints that people think are invisible but never truly are. There, an access spike at 0300, right when the uplink hiccuped. Someone logged in remotely, pulled data, not much, a few kilobytes. Probably looked like routine telemetry to anyone glancing at the logs. Except the access came from an IP address that traces back to Admiral Cross's office. At 0300 in the morning, when the building is locked and alarmed and supposedly empty, she photographs the screen with her tablet. Encrypted storage, chain of custody, evidence that will hold up when this eventually reaches courts-martial proceedings. What are you doing? She doesn't jump, doesn't close the screen, just turns calmly. Quinn Hale stands in the doorway, maintenance bag over his shoulder, suspicion written across his face like accusation. System diagnostics, she says. Someone's been accessing files outside normal parameters. You're not authorized for security reviews. I'm not conducting a security review. I'm checking system integrity. Looks like a security review to me. He steps closer, peers at her screen. His expression shifts. He recognizes what he's seeing, understands the implications. For a moment, neither speaks. The air conditioning whispers. A server fan clicks into higher speed. You need to log off, Hale says finally. Now. In a moment. No, now. His hand moves toward the radio on his belt. Or I'm calling this in. She saves her work, logs off, stands. Warrant Officer Hale, if someone on this base is compromising classified systems, wouldn't you want to know? What I want is for contractors to stay in their lane. What I want is to not have to explain to my commanding officer why some civilian is digging through access logs at 0500 in the morning. Fair enough. She moves toward the door. He blocks her path. Not aggressively, just there. A wall of uncertainty trying to decide if she's a problem that needs escalating. Who are you really? He asks quietly. Exactly who my ID says I am. Your ID says you're a technical consultant, but technical consultants don't run security audits, don't know how to read authentication protocols at this level. He's not stupid, probably never was, just playing his part in a system he trusts. I've been doing this job for 12 years, he continues. I know what normal looks like. You're not it. Maybe that's because normal is broken. Or maybe you're a plant, Industrial espionage happens more than people think. Contractors get hired by competitors, by foreign intelligence, by people who want exactly what you're looking for. His hand tightens on his radio. I should have you arrested right now. You should, but you won't. Why not? Because some part of you knows something's wrong here. You've felt it. Small things that don't add up. Access patterns that seem off. Orders that don't quite make sense. She holds his gaze. You're good at your job, warrant officer. Good enough to notice the discrepancies. Not quite senior enough to do anything about them. His jaw works. Get out. She leaves. Behind her, Hale stands in the control room, radio in hand, trying to decide which is more dangerous, trusting a stranger or ignoring his instincts. By 0600, the base wakes fully. Morning PT, breakfast rushes, the organized chaos of a military installation starting its day. Alara is at the enlisted dining facility when Admiral Cross enters with his usual entourage. He spots her immediately. Something about the recognition feels deliberate, like he's been looking for her. Well, he changes course, approaches her table. Didn't expect to see you still around. She looks up from her oatmeal. Still around, sir? I heard you were in the control room early. 0500, before authorized access hours, running diagnostics without approval. Running diagnostics as requested. Funny, I don't remember requesting diagnostics at 0500. He sits down across from her without invitation. His team hovers nearby, watching. What I remember, Cross continues, is specifically telling you to stay away from tactical systems. The systems I was reviewing weren't tactical. They were administrative access logs, which you have exactly zero authorization to review. His voice carries across the dining facility. Nearby tables go quiet, personnel turning to watch. This is theater. Performance. Cross putting on a show. If there's a security concern, Alara says calmly, I'm required to report it. Security concern. Cross laughs. It's the kind of laugh designed to humiliate, loud enough for everyone to hear, inviting them to share in the joke. Let me tell you about security concerns, sweetheart. My security concern is unauthorized personnel accessing sensitive systems and then hiding behind bureaucratic excuses when they get caught. He leans forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to finish your breakfast, then you're going to pack your things, then you're going to be escorted off this base. And if you're very lucky, we won't press charges for attempted data breach. I haven't breached any data. Warrant Officer Hale says otherwise. So Hale called it in. Disappointing, but not surprising. Then Warrant Officer Hale should present his evidence through proper channels. Proper channels. Cross's face darkens. You think you can lawyer your way out of this? You think citing regulations means anything when you've been caught red-handed? She meets his eyes, holds them, lets the silence stretch until it becomes uncomfortable. With all due respect, Admiral, if you're going to make accusations, you should probably have your facts straight first. My facts are straight. You were in a restricted system at an unauthorized time, looking at files you have no clearance to access. System access logs aren't classified. They're administrative records. Any user with basic clearance can view them. Not at 0500 they can't. The time of day doesn't change the classification level. Cross's hands flatten on the table. You're done. I'm calling security. You'll be detained pending investigation. He pulls out his radio. Keys it. Base security. This is Admiral Cross. I need a detention team at the enlisted DFAC immediately. We have a contractor in violation of security protocols. The response crackles back. Copy that, Admiral. Team en route. She doesn't run, doesn't argue, just sits there breathing in that steady 4-count rhythm, watching him with those winter ocean eyes. Within 3 minutes, 4 military police arrive. Body armor, sidearms, the full intimidation package. Sir, the senior MP salutes Cross. This contractor has been accessing classified systems without authorization. I want her detained and investigated. Yes, sir. The MB turns to her. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stand up slowly and keep your hands visible. She complies, sets down her spoon, pushes back from the table, stands with her hands at her sides. Relaxed, non-threatening. The dining facility has gone quiet, everyone watching. This is the story that'll be told all day. The contractor who thought she was something special getting exactly what she deserved. Hands behind your back, please. She complies again. Feels the zip ties go on, not tight enough to cut circulation, but secure enough to prevent any sudden movements. Do you have any weapons or contraband on your person? No, we're going to search you anyway. Of course. They're professional about it. Quick pat down, check her pockets, confiscate her tablet, her ID, her phone. The watch stays on. Nobody thinks to check it. Why would they? It's just a watch. The holding facility is a low concrete building near the base perimeter, designed for temporarily detaining personnel awaiting transport to more permanent facilities. It has 6 cells of processing area and the distinct smell of disinfectant failing to cover older, less pleasant odors. Cell 3 is 8 by 10 feet. Concrete walls, metal bench, toilet without a lid, a small window near the ceiling that lets in light but shows only sky. They cut the zip ties, lock the door, leave her alone. She sits on the bench, closes her eyes, lets her head rest against the wall. This is the near-fail moment. The point where anyone watching from the outside would think she's finished. Caught. Game over. Except games have rules, and she's about to show them they've been playing the wrong game entirely. Her watch displays 1,600 hours. Missed check-in. Somewhere at Fort Meade, an encrypted system registers the absence of her scheduled communication. Protocols activate automatically. Flags rise through chains of command most people don't know exist. She has 40 minutes until backup power failure creates an artificial deadline that will force everyone's hand. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. Somewhere above her, through the small window, a jet screams across the sky. Routine training flight. Young pilots learning to push machines to their limits, trusting that the Navy that trained them has their backs. Most of the time it does, but not always. Not when the corruption comes from the top. Not when the people meant to protect the system are the ones feeding on it. The door opens. Commander Ashford Locke enters, carrying a file folder. He looks uncomfortable, like a man who's realized the simple case he expected has complications he didn't want. I need to ask you some questions. Am I being charged with something? That depends on your answers. He sits on the opposite end of the bench. What were you doing in the control room at 0500? System diagnostics. Why at 0500? Light traffic, better performance data. You accessed user authentication logs. That's part of system diagnostics. Not according to Warrant Officer Hale. Warrant Officer Hale is mistaken about the scope of my authorization. Locke opens the folder. Inside are printouts of her access records. Everything she touched, everything she reviewed. It looks damning, designed to look damning. These logs show you specifically targeting files related to Admiral Cross's office. The logs show I reviewed anomalous access patterns. Those patterns happen to originate from that office. And you didn't think to report this through proper channels. I was gathering data to determine if there was anything worth reporting. That's not your job. Actually, it is. She holds his gaze. My contract specifically requires me to report security vulnerabilities. Accessing an admiral's files isn't reporting vulnerabilities. It's espionage. I didn't access his files. I reviewed access logs showing someone using his credentials to access classified data at 0300 in the morning. That makes Locke pause. Explain. Someone logged in remotely using Admiral Cross's authentication, pulled data, then logged out. The access came from an IP address registered to his office during hours when the building was supposedly empty and secure. You're saying someone hacked his account. I'm saying someone used his credentials. Whether it was him or someone else, I can't determine from access logs alone. Locke stares at the printouts. This is more complicated than he wanted. Simple cases of contractor overreach are easy. Someone steps out of bounds, you escort them off base file, the paperwork move on. This is something else. I'll need to verify this. Of course, he stands, looks at her for a long moment, like he's trying to reconcile the quiet woman on the bench with the implications of what she's suggesting. Who are you really? Still just a technical consultant commander. Right. He doesn't believe her, but he's also not stupid enough to ignore potential security breaches just because they come from an inconvenient source. Stay here. Not planning on going anywhere. The door locks again. She's alone. 16-20 hours. 20 minutes until protocol escalation. The watch sits on her wrist. Small, unassuming. The hidden button recessed into the casing feels heavier than it should. 3 ounces of pressure-sensitive material. She's carried it for 3 months without touching it. Protocol says don't activate unless absolutely necessary. Protocol also says trust your instincts when the mission parameters shift. Her fingers hover over it. Not yet. Outside, somewhere in the administrative building, Locke is pulling server logs. Cross-referencing her data, finding that she's right. And that terrifies him. Because if she's right, then someone at command level has been compromising operations. And that's the kind of problem that destroys careers just for being adjacent to it. 16:30 hours. The door opens again. But it's not locked. Lieutenant Cade Merrick stands there with two MPs, all of them looking stressed. Like men who've been given orders they don't quite understand but are too disciplined to question. You need to come with us. She stands. Am I being charged? The Admiral wants to talk to you now. They don't bother with restraints this time, just escort her quickly through corridors painted in emergency lighting. Red and harsh, personnel press against walls to let them pass. Everyone trying to figure out what's happening. Whether it's a drill, whether it's real. The control room is crowded when they arrive. Cross, Hale, Locke, half a dozen other officers. All of them staring at screens showing system diagnostics running wild. Data cascading across multiple windows. Access patterns, file transfers, authentication logs. Everything she's been tracking for 3 months. All of it suddenly visible. Cross turns when she enters. His face is controlled fury. The kind of rage that comes when someone in authority realizes they've lost control of the narrative. What did you do? Before she can answer, one of the MPs grabs her arm, hard, trying to position her away from the consoles. His grip catches the edge of her sleeve, pulls it upward with enough force that fabric tears slightly. The sleeve rides up her left forearm, exposes skin, and something else. Ink. Black and gray, a design that's instantly recognizable to anyone who's spent time in special operations. A trident crossed with lightning bolts. Beneath it, numbers. Not random. A unit designation, task force numbers that don't appear in any public database. The room goes silent. Not the shocked silence from before. Something deeper. Heavier. Master Chief Garrett Boone sees it first. His eyes widen. His hand moves to his chest, unconscious gesture. Like he's reaching for dog tags he no longer wears on the outside. Holy hell. His voice is barely a whisper. That's a JSOC operator mark. Task Force insignia. I've only seen that twice in 43 years. Quinn Hale leans forward, squinting. What does it mean? It means she's not a contractor. Boone's voice is steady now, certain. That ink is only authorized for personnel assigned to Joint Special Operations Command. Tier 1 level, the kind of operators who don't exist on paper. Commander Locke steps closer, staring at the tattoo like it might be fake. But the scar tissue around it tells a different story. Old ink, years old, integrated into skin that's seen combat, not something you get in a weekend. That proves nothing, Cross says. His voice has lost its certainty. Anyone can get a tattoo, doesn't make them special operations. Anyone can get ink, sir. Boone doesn't take his eyes off the design. But that specific pattern, those numbers, that's not something you walk into a tattoo parlor and request. That's earned, authorized, recorded in classified personnel files. She pulls her sleeve back down. Calm, unhurried. Like exposing classified insignia in front of a dozen witnesses is exactly what she meant to do. You wanted proof, Admiral. There it is. That's not proof, that's a tattoo. Could be fake. Could be stolen design. Then verify it. She reaches slowly into her chest pocket. Every eye tracks the movement. She pulls out a card. Not the contractor ID they've seen before. Something else. Red border. Holographic seal that shifts in the light. Serial number embossed across the top. Pentagon Access Authorization. Joint Special Operations Command. The serial number on this card matches the unit designation in that tattoo. Cross-reference them, she says. Your own security system will confirm. Hale takes the card with shaking hands, slides it through the reader. The system processes. Takes longer than a standard ID. Running deeper verification. Checking databases most people don't know exist. The screen flashes green. Then displays information that makes everyone in the room go completely still. Captain Alara Voss, Special Access Program, codename Phantom Crown, active status, clearance T, SCI, plus SAP. Unit Task Force Wraith, an assignment, classification restricted. A second window opens automatically. Shows a photograph from personnel files. Same woman, younger. Wearing combat fatigues and a patch that matches the tattoo on her arm. Standing next to two generals whose names are redacted, but whose faces are recognizable to anyone who follows defense news. A third window. Service record, heavily redacted but enough visible to tell the story. 12 years active duty, multiple deployments, Commendations listed only by classification code. A Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, medals that mean combat, real combat, and at the bottom a death certificate, dated 2 years ago, Syria. Listed as killed in action during a convoy attack. Locke's voice is hollow. You're supposed to be dead. I was, officially. She doesn't elaborate, doesn't need to. The implications hang in the air like smoke. Hale pulls up another screen. Sir, this clearance level outranks everyone on this base, including you. It requires Pentagon-level authorization just to view the full file. Cross stares at the screens. His hands grip the edge of the console. Knuckles white. This is impossible. JSOC doesn't run operations on domestic bases without notification. There are protocols, procedures. There are, she says, meeting his eyes. And one of those protocols allows for classified investigations when corruption reaches command level, when normal oversight channels can't be trusted, when operators are dying because someone is selling intelligence. The main screen updates. The system audit that's been running in the background completes its analysis. Data cascades across multiple windows, file access logs, transfer records, authentication timestamps, all of it color-coded, green for normal, yellow for questionable, red for violations. There's a lot of red, and most of it traces back to one set of credentials, Admiral Drayton Cross. Someone planted that data. Cross's voice has lost its certainty. The authentication is fabricated. The authentication includes biometric verification, sir. Hale's voice is mechanical. Like he's delivering a diagnosis he doesn't want to believe. Fingerprint, retinal scan, time-stamped access from your personal terminal. These aren't simple password hacks. A new window opens, shows real-time correlation analysis. Every file cross-accessed, cross-referenced against intelligence reports of compromised operations. Each match highlighted, time-stamped, documented. The correlation percentage climbs, 70%, 80, 93. Sir, oh, Hale sounds like Annie's going to be sick. This shows that every time you accessed specific tactical files, operations failed within 72 hours. The pattern is statistically impossible to explain as coincidence. Locke has his hand near his sidearm now, not drawing, just ready. Admiral, I need you to step away from the console. This is insane. But Cross is backing away, cornered, desperate. You're all believing fabricated evidence over 12 years of service. 30 years of service, Alara says. Her voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. You had 30 years, built a career, earned respect, then threw it away selling intelligence to private contractors, getting operators killed for what money? I never Project Nexus, Obsidian Solutions. You've been transferring classified data to them for 8 months. The financial records show payments matching the transfer timeline. Every time you pulled files, money appeared in accounts you thought were untraceable. Another window opens. Bank statements, wire transfers, shell companies, all of it documented, but all of it damning. Outside, the sound of rotors grows louder. Multiple aircraft approaching fast. Everyone moves to the windows. 4 Black Hawk helicopters descending toward the base helipad. Not standard transport. Command birds. The kind reserved for flag officers and emergency deployments. Cross's face goes pale. Who did you call? I didn't call anyone. Alara watches the helicopter settle. The protocol did, automatically, when I missed my 1600 check-in. Standard procedure for deep cover operations. Missed check-in triggers immediate response. Ensures the asset is secure and evidence is preserved. The helicopters touch down. Doors open. 4 figures emerge. Even at this distance, the stars on their uniforms catch the light. Generals. Moving with the kind of purpose that suggests this isn't a social visit. Cross turns back to Alara. Something in his expression shifts. Desperation replacing everything else. We have 45 minutes before the backup power fails. You want to do this right, fine. But we need to secure the evidence before the system goes dark. Convenient timeline, Admiral. It's the truth. Check the power logs. Backup generators weren't designed for extended lockdowns. We've got 45 minutes. Maybe less. Alara looks at Hale. Confirm. Hale pulls up the power management system. He's right. Backup power at 63%. Current drain rate gives them approximately 42 minutes before non-essential systems start shutting down. That includes the audit protocol. Then we finish this now. Alara turns to Merrick, the lieutenant who spent 3 months making her life difficult, who spread rumors, who laughed at every joke at her expense. Lieutenant Merrick, you need to do something for me. Merrick straightens, confused, wary. Ma'am, you spent 3 months telling people I didn't belong here, that I was incompetent, that I was a waste of space. Her voice is level, no accusation, just statement of fact. Now I need you to prove yourself wrong. Pull the detailed access logs, every file touch, every transfer, every authentication. Show everyone in this room who really betrayed this base. Say the request lands like a physical blow. Merrick's face cycles through shame-resistance calculation. Why me? What? Because you're good at your job, because despite everything you follow protocols, because you need to see the truth yourself, and because when this is over, when people ask what happened here, I want them to know that the people who doubted me were the ones who helped expose the real threat. Merrick looks at Cross, at Locke, at the screens showing evidence he doesn't want to believe, then back at Alara. Yes, ma'am. He moves to a terminal, fingers fly across the keyboard, pulling logs, cross-referencing, building the timeline that's been hiding in plain sight for 8 months. The room watches in silence. 41 minutes remaining. Got something. Merrick's voice is tight. Access pattern from Admiral Cross's credentials. But there's a secondary pattern. Another user with elevated privileges accessing the same files within hours. Different credentials. General level clearance. Who? Locke demands. Merrick pulls up the authentication record. Goes pale. General Silas Brennan. He accessed every file the Admiral touched. Sometimes before, sometimes after. Like they were coordinating. Alara's expression doesn't change, but her jaw tightens. General Silas Brennan, the officer who authorized this operation, who suggested using a deceased operator for deep cover, who specifically recommended her. General Brennan was one of the officers who authorized Sovereign Ghost Protocol, she says quietly, who suggested using a KIA operator to go deep, who put me in position to investigate Cross while staying protected in the oversight role. The implications spread through the room like poison. He knew. Boone's voice is rough. He knew you'd be investigating, knew you'd be looking at Cross, thought he could control the investigation from the inside. More than that, Merrick is still pulling logs. His voice shakes. General Brennan accessed the intelligence briefing that sent Commander Voss's convoy into that kill zone in Syria, 2 hours before the operation. He modified the route, changed the threat assessment, made it look like updated intelligence. The control room goes silent except for the hum of electronics and cooling fans. Alara stares at the screen, at the proof, at the evidence that the man who sent her team to their deaths is the same man who tried to use her ghost to protect himself. He tried to kill me. Her voice is barely a whisper. When that failed, he tried to use me. We need to inform the arriving command. Locke reaches for his radio. Wait, Alara holds up a hand. Let them come to us. Brennan doesn't know we've made the connection yet. If we tip our hand too early, he disappears into layers of classified protection. 38 minutes remaining. The control room door opens. 4 generals enter. They're not wearing combat gear. Service dress, immaculate, professional. The kind of appearance that says this is official business at the highest level. The lead general is a woman, 3 stars. Silver hair pulled back tight, eyes like flint. She surveys the room with an expression that's seen every variation of corruption. Behind her, 3 more flag officers, 2 men and a woman, all wearing stars and combat ribbons in the weight of command. Master Chief Boone sees them and goes rigid. He recognizes one, served under him 20 years ago before the stars, back when they were both operators. The female general's gaze sweeps the room, stops on Alara. The entire room holds its breath. This is the moment. The reveal everyone's been waiting for without knowing they were waiting. Decades of military protocol, of rigid hierarchy, of knowing exactly where everyone stands in the chain of command. All of it hangs suspended in this single moment. The general's hand moves, rises, forms the crisp edge of a salute. The room detonates. Gasps. Actual audible gasps from multiple personnel. Someone drops a tablet. The clatter echoes like a gunshot in the stunned silence. Merrick's mouth falls open. His eyes go wide. Every certainty he's held for 3 months shatters in the space between heartbeats. Hale leans back like he's been pushed. His chair scrapes against the floor. Locke's hand freezes halfway to his sidearm. Forgot what he was reaching for. Forgot why he moved at all. Cross makes a sound, not quite a word, just air escaping. The sound of a man watching his entire world collapse. Captain Alara Voss. The general's voice could cut steel. Each word lands with the weight of absolute authority. Welcome back, ma'am. The other three generals snap to attention. The movement is simultaneous. Practiced. Three more salutes. Precise, respectful, the kind you give to an equal, the kind that erases any remaining doubt about who this woman really is. Ilara returns them. Her posture shifts completely. The change is subtle but total. No longer the contractor trying to stay invisible. No longer the civilian enduring dismissal and contempt. Now she stands like what she is, what she's always been, an officer, a commander. Someone who's spent 12 years earning this moment through blood and sacrifice and choices that left scars deeper than any tattoo. General Marin Hartwell. Ilara's voice has changed too. Still quiet, but with edges of authority that weren't there before. Or perhaps they were always there, just buried under layers of operational necessity. Thank you for the response time. We've been monitoring since your check-in lapse. When the lockdown was triggered, we mobilized immediately. Hartwell's eyes moved across. The temperature in the room drops 20 degrees. Her gaze is the kind that has sent hardened warriors scrambling to correct mistakes. Admiral Drayton Cross, I'm General Marin Hartwell, Joint Special Operations Command. You're being placed under arrest for violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, specifically unauthorized disclosure of classified information, conspiracy to commit espionage, and conduct unbecoming an officer. Cross's voice is hollow, empty. This is based on fabricated evidence. The evidence was compiled by one of our most decorated operators over 3 months of direct observation. One of the other generals steps forward, 2 stars and a chest full of ribbons that tells stories of battles most people will never hear about. Captain Voss has been embedded at this facility since August, monitoring, documenting, building a case that will stand up to any scrutiny. Every file access, every transfer, every communication, all of it preserved on systems you didn't know existed. Systems designed specifically to protect evidence from exactly the kind of tampering you're suggesting. Merrick is staring at Ilara like he's seeing her for the first time, which in a way he is. The contractor he mocked, the civilian he dismissed, the woman whose competence he questioned at every turn. Was real. All of it was her, just not in the way he assumed. You've been JSOC this whole time. His voice breaks, the weight of his own actions crushing down. Every rumor I spread, every joke, every he can't finish. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Later, Lieutenant. Ilara's tone isn't cruel, just focused. Right now, I need you to finish pulling those logs. General Hartwell needs to see the complete picture, including General Brennan's involvement. The room temperature drops another 10 degrees. Several officers exchange glances. Brennan's name carries weight. A general doesn't just get accused, not without evidence so solid it can't be questioned. Hartwell's expression doesn't change, but something hardens in her eyes. Something cold and absolutely unforgiving. Explain. Merrick pulls up the correlation data. His hands shake slightly, but his fingers are steady on the keyboard. Shows the dual access pattern. Cross and Brennan moving in coordination. The modified intelligence briefing. The Syria convoy route that put Ilara in a kill zone. Numbers and timestamps that tell a story of betrayal at the highest levels. General Brennan has been running this operation from the beginning, Ilara says. Her voice is clinical now, operational, the tone of someone delivering an after-action report. He's the one who recruited Cross, who provided the contacts at Obsidian Solutions, who made sure internal investigations never got close enough to threaten the network. And when you initiated Phantom Crown Protocol, when you needed a deceased operator to go deep, he suggested me specifically. Put me in position to catch Cross while he stayed protected in the oversight role. Where is Brennan now? Hartwell demands. He left 20 minutes before the protocol activated. Locke checks his logs. His voice is tight. Very convenient timing. Not convenience. He was warned. Ilara looks at Hartwell, meets her eyes directly. Someone in your command structure tipped him. He knew the check-in window, knew when to disappear. Hartwell's jaw tightens, the only visible sign of the fury building beneath that controlled exterior. We'll discuss that later. Right now we secure Cross, then we go after Brennan with everything we have. She nods to the MPs. They move in, professional, precise, reading Cross his rights while securing his sidearm, while placing restraints designed to be respectful but absolute. The kind used when arresting senior officers. The kind that say this is official, this is legal, this is happening. As they lead him toward the door, Cross stops, looks back at Ilara one last time, searching her face for something. Answers maybe, or understanding, or just acknowledgement that he was beaten by someone better. How long have you been planning this? Since Syria. Alara's voice is quiet, level. Since I woke up in a field hospital and realized someone had sold my convoy's location. Since I learned that operators don't just die in coincidental IED attacks. 2 years, Admiral. 2 years being dead. 2 years hunting the people who killed my team. And 3 months watching you prove exactly who you are. They take him out. The door closes. The sound echoes in the suddenly empty space. Alara pulls out her tablet, the real one. Encrypted military-grade security that makes commercial systems look like children's toys. Brings up a file she's been building for 3 months. Layer by layer, evidence by evidence. General, the network is bigger than Cross and Brennan. She displays the data, turns the tablet so Hartwell can see. The audit flags 16 other officers across 6 bases, 4 contractors, and 2 sitting congressmen who took money to facilitate defense contracts. I documented everything, access patterns, financial transfers, communication intercepts. It's all here, ready for prosecution. Hartwell studies the tablet. Her expression remains granite, but there's something in her eyes. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication, or just the grim acceptance that corruption ran deeper than anyone wanted to believe. Captain, I'm going to ask you something. She hands the tablet back. You've been under for 3 months. Deep cover takes a toll. You could step back now, take a desk job, teach at Coronado. Nobody would question it. You've earned the right to rest. With respect, ma'am, I'll step back when everyone who sold intelligence that got operators killed is in prison. Not before. Alara's voice is absolute. No hesitation. No doubt. You sent me in as bait once. It worked. We used Cross's arrest to make Brennan nervous. Make him think the investigation stops here. Then watch what mistakes he makes trying to cover his tracks. That's a longer operation. Could take months. Could take years. I'm aware I'll do whatever it takes, however long it takes. The third general, who hasn't spoken yet, smiles slightly. There's pride in that expression. And respect. She's got your stoke burned, Miss Marin. That's what happens when you recruit them this dedicated. Hartwell doesn't disagree. We'll brief you tomorrow on next steps. For tonight, you're officially Captain Voss again. Enjoy it while you can. Tomorrow you might become someone else. Yes, ma'am. Dismissed, Alara salutes. Turns to leave. Stops when Boone steps forward. The old Master Chief who saw through her cover from the beginning. Ma'am, permission to speak. Granted, Master Chief. That tattoo, that grip on the UAV controller. The breathing pattern. I knew something was off but couldn't place it. He comes to full attention, salutes properly, with the kind of precision that comes from decades of service. Should have recognized JSOC training. I went through Bragg myself back in '98. You served with distinction, Garrett. Your record is exemplary, and you could have exposed me several times but chose not to. Thank you for trusting your instincts. Figured if someone went to that much trouble to hide, they had reasons. Good ones. He drops the salute. His voice softens. Welcome home, Commander. Thank you, Master Chief. She leaves. Walking through corridors starting to return to normal. The lockdown is lifting. Personnel emerging from emergency stations. Confusion written on faces. Questions being asked. The base beginning to breathe again after hours of lockdown tension. But whispers follow her. Story fragments already forming, growing, spreading through the base like wildfire. The contractor who wasn't. The ghost who outranked an admiral. The operator who came back from the dead. By tomorrow, everyone will have heard some version. By next week, the legend will have grown beyond recognition. But tonight, the truth is enough. By 1900 hours, she's back in her temporary quarters. The small concrete room that's been home for 3 months. Sits on the metal bed, allows herself 60 seconds of stillness. No performance, no maintained composure, no 4-count breathing or careful positioning, just 60 seconds of being herself, of letting the weight settle, of acknowledging what just happened. Then her tablet chimes, secure message. She opens it. Consequence cascade implementation, immediate actions against Cross, continued surveillance on Brennan, comprehensive investigation across 12 facilities, institutional reforms throughout JSOC, legacy recognition for the operation, everything documented, everything official, everything real. She reads it twice. The cascade is real, spreading through the system like antibodies fighting infection. Not perfect, never perfect, but better, measurably better. A second message arrives. Different sender, unknown origin. The subject line makes her blood run cold. Tower 4 sends regards. No text, just an attachment. An image file, grainy, shows a compound in Syria, coordinates visible in the corner. Date stamp from 2 years ago. Her convoy route marked in red. The path they took, the kill zone they entered. All of it documented by someone who knew, who watched, who waited. And in the corner, barely visible, a figure watching from a rooftop. Too distant to identify but holding something. A radio maybe, or a phone, or a detonator. Someone was there. Someone watched her convoy drive into that kill zone. Someone who coordinated the attack. Someone who's still out there, still operating, still thinking they're safe because they stayed in the shadows. She stares at the image, doesn't open a reply, just saves it to encrypted storage. Evidence for tomorrow, for the next hunt, for the mission that never really ends. Tomorrow brings new missions. Tonight brings questions, and the knowledge that the network runs deeper than even Hartwell suspects. A knock at the door. She closes the tablet, opens the door. Merrick stands there, still looking shaken, still processing everything he learned today. Ma'am, I came to apologize. I was part of the problem. Everything I did, everything I said, I should have been better. You followed your commanding officer's lead, Lieutenant. That's what junior officers do. It's what you're trained to do. Still, I made assumptions, treated you like you didn't belong. He finally meets her eyes, really meets them. If there's anything I can do to make it right, remember this feeling. She holds his gaze. This moment when you realized you misjudged someone completely. Next time you meet someone who doesn't fit expectations, look closer instead of dismissing them. Ask questions instead of making assumptions. That's how you make it right. That's how you become better. Yes, ma'am, I will. He salutes. She returns it. He leaves looking slightly less burdened, still carrying weight, but perhaps understanding now that growth comes from acknowledging mistakes rather than defending them. She closes the door, looks at her tablet again. The Tower 4 image is still there, still unexplained, still dangerous. A thread that leads somewhere darker than Cross or Brennan. Somewhere she'll need to follow. She opens a reply, types 4 words. Tomorrow, not tonight. Sends it. The message disappears into encrypted channels, bouncing through servers, reaching someone somewhere, someone who knows she's coming. Outside her window, the sun sets over the Atlantic in streaks of orange and purple. Beautiful, peaceful. The kind of view that makes people forget wars are being fought, that operators are dying, that corruption thrives in comfortable shadows. Somewhere on this base, Cross sits in a cell contemplating the destruction of everything he built. Somewhere in Washington, analysts are building cases that will take down networks. Somewhere in dark places, people who profited from treason are getting nervous, starting to look over their shoulders, starting to wonder who else might be watching. And somewhere, the person who watched her convoy drive into that ambush is still out there, still operating, still thinking they're safe because they've avoided detection for 2 years. They're wrong, she's patient, she's thorough, and she never stops hunting. The helicopters sit on the tarmac like predators at rest, rotors still, engines cooling, the kind of machines that exist for one purpose, getting important people to dangerous places fast. General Marin Hartwell stands beside the lead Black Hawk, reviewing reports on a tablet. The glow from the screen illuminates her face in the pre-dawn darkness. Behind her, the other 3 generals confer in low voices, planning, strategizing, preparing for what comes next. Alara approaches across the tarmac, 0530. The base is still, mostly asleep. Just a skeleton crew and the kind of people who operate best in the hours before dawn. Hartwell looks up, doesn't smile, doesn't need to. Captain Voss, walk with me. They move away from the helicopters, away from the other officers, out toward the edge of the flight line where the Atlantic stretches dark and endless, toward a horizon just beginning to show the first hints of light. Cross is in federal custody, Hartwell says. FBI took him 3 hours ago. He'll be processed through military justice system, but the Bureau wants first crack at the financial crimes. Congressional oversight is already screaming for hearings. And Brennan, gone completely. His house was empty when agents arrived. Bank accounts drained, offshore holdings liquidated. He had 12 hours warning and used every minute of it. Alara's jaw tightens. Someone in your command structure. Yes, I have internal affairs investigating, but whoever tipped Brennan knows how to cover tracks. It could take weeks to identify them. Hartwell stops, turns to face her directly. which is why I need you to do what you do best. Disappear, become someone else, and find him before he vanishes completely. Fort Bragg, the Tower 4 message. We traced the IP originated from a terminal at Bragg's Special Warfare Center. Access logs show it was sent during a shift change when the facility was technically unmanned. Hartwell pulls up a file on her tablet. But we found something else. Security footage from the parking lot, same timestamp. She turns the tablet. The image shows a figure in civilian clothes walking toward a black SUV, face turned away from the camera. Deliberate, professional, but visible on the figure's left hand a distinctive ring. Heavy, military style, with an insignia that matches nothing in any official database. Tower 4 isn't a person, Alara says quietly. It's an organization. That's our assessment. Obsidian Solutions was just one arm. Brennan and Cross were middle management. Tower 4 is the command structure, and they've been operating for decades. Hartwell swipes to another image. This one shows a different parking lot, different base, but the same distinctive ring on someone's hand opening a car door. Naval Station Norfolk, 2 weeks ago. Another swipe, another image. Camp Pendleton, last month. Another. Joint Base Lewis McCord, 3 months ago. How many, Alara asks. We've identified the ring in footage from 11 different installations across 18 months, always during shift changes, always on figures who know exactly where cameras are and how to avoid them. Hartwell closes the file. Tower 4 has people embedded everywhere, and they're good enough that we didn't even know to look for them until you forced Cross's hand. The sun breaks the horizon, orange and red bleeding across the sky like a wound. What's the mission? Infiltrate Fort Bragg. Someone there is coordinating Tower 4 operations. Find them, identify the network, and burn it down. Hartwell's voice is steel. But Captain, I need to be clear about something. This isn't like the Cross operation. You had me in your corner. You had backup protocols. You had extraction options. And this time you're hunting people who've been doing this since before you were born, who've survived every internal investigation, who have resources we're still discovering. She pauses. This time, if they identify you, there won't be 4 helicopters coming to pull you out. There might not be anything at all. Alara looks out at the ocean, watches the sun climb higher, thinks about 5 faces. Her team in Syria, Marcus Riley, Jamie Castellano, 3 others whose names are carved into her memory deeper than any tattoo. How long do I have? Wheels up in 6 hours. We've created a new identity, new background, new clearance trail. You'll be a trauma counselor. Civilian contractor assigned to work with operators returning from deployment. PTSD evaluations. Psychological assessments. It puts you in contact with personnel across the entire base without raising suspicion. And my contact, Master Chief Garrett Boone, he's being reassigned to Bragg as a training instructor, Gulf War veteran, extensive combat experience. Perfect cover for staying close to special warfare personnel. Hartwell hands her a phone. This is your only link to me. Encrypted. 1 message per week. Miss 2 check-ins and I scrub the operation. Alara takes the phone. Feels the weight of it. Not just the device. The mission. The risk. The possibility that this is the one she doesn't come back from. There's something else you should know, Hartwell says. The Syria attack. We pulled signals intelligence from the time window. Found encrypted communications from a source near the ambush site. Couldn't crack them, but we got metadata. The transmission originated from equipment that requires military-grade training to operate. Tower 4 was there. Someone who coordinated the timing, who made sure your convoy hit that kill zone at exactly the right moment. Hartwell's voice softens, just slightly. I know what I'm asking, Captain. I know what going to Bragg means. Walking past the memorial walls, seeing the places you trained, being surrounded by operators who knew you when you were Alara Voss instead of whoever you're about to become. I'll manage. I know you will, but I also know the cost. And I want you to understand that if you need to step back, if the weight gets too heavy, there's no shame in that. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Alara turns from the ocean, meets Hartwell's eyes. With respect, ma'am, I'll step back when everyone who killed my team is in the ground. Not before. Hartwell nods, almost smiles. Garrett Boone said you were stubborn. I'm starting to see what he meant. They walk back toward the helicopters. The other generals have finished their conference. They straighten as Hartwell approaches. Professional, respectful, but there's something else in their expressions. They know what comes next. They know the odds. General Thaddeus Crane steps forward. 2 stars, 60 years old, face like weathered granite. Captain Voss, a word before you go. Hartwell nods, gives them space. Crane waits until they're alone. I knew your father, he says quietly. Colonel David Voss. Served with him in Panama. He was one of the finest officers I ever knew. When I heard you'd been killed in Syria, I attended the memorial, spoke to your mother, told her that her daughter died doing what mattered. Alara says nothing. Now I find out you've been alive for 2 years, operating in deep cover, taking down corruption at levels that make my skin crawl. He pauses. Your father would be proud, but he'd also be terrified. Because he knew what happens to people who push too hard against systems that don't want to be fixed. Did you know Brennan, sir? I did. Served on a joint task force with him in the 90s. Brilliant tactician, absolute professional. I would have trusted him with my life. Crane's voice goes hard, which is exactly how people like him operate. They build trust, build credibility, and then they use it to hollow out everything from the inside. He reaches into his jacket, pulls out a small velvet box. This was your father's. He gave it to me before his last deployment. Said if anything happened, he wanted you to have it. Alara opens the box. Inside, a challenge coin. Not standard issue. Custom made. One side shows the Special Forces crest. The other shows a single word, persevere. He carried that through 3 wars, Crane says. Said it reminded him why he kept fighting when everything told him to quit. I think you're going to need it more than I do. She closes the box, slips it into her pocket. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. Just promise me something. He holds her gaze. Promise me that when this is over, when you've burned Tower 4 to ashes, you'll let yourself rest. Let yourself be Alara Voss again, instead of whatever ghost you've been wearing. Your father wouldn't want you to spend your whole life hunting shadows. I'll try, sir. That's all any of us can do. He salutes. She returns it. And then she's walking toward the waiting transport, a C-130 cargo plane, the kind designed to get operators into hostile territory without anyone noticing. Garrett Boone stands near the rear ramp, civilian clothes now, jeans and a flannel shirt that makes him look like someone's grandfather instead of a man who's seen more combat than most active duty personnel. Ready for one more mission, Master Chief. At my age, every mission might be the last one. Might as well make it count. He gestures toward the plane. You know what's waiting for us at Bragg? Ghosts, memories, and people who've been getting away with murder for decades. Sounds about right. He starts up the ramp, pauses. For what it's worth, Captain, and I'm glad I'm not doing this alone. Nice to have someone watching my back who actually knows what they're doing. The feeling is mutual. They board the plane. The ramp closes behind them with hydraulic finality. Inside the cargo bay is mostly empty. Just 2 seats, some equipment crates, and the kind of silence that comes with flying into uncertainty. The engines spool up. The plane lurches forward, begins its taxi toward the runway. Alara pulls out the phone Hartwell gave her, one message already loaded. Phantom Crown Phase 2 authorized. Fort Bragg infiltration begins 08800 local. Maintain cover at all costs. Weekly check-in mandatory. Miss 2 equals abort. She deletes the message, watches the words disappear. 2 years ago, she died in a Syrian desert. 3 months ago, she became a ghost at Mayport. Now she's about to walk back into the place where it all began, where she learned to be an operator, where her father's name is carved into memorial walls alongside hundreds of others who gave everything. The plane lifts off, banking east, toward North Carolina, toward Fort Bragg, toward answers that have been buried for 33 years. Boone leans back in his seat, closes his eyes. But his jaw is tight. His hands rest on his knees with the careful stillness of someone keeping themselves under control. You okay, Master Chief? Been 40 years since I was stationed at Bragg. Trained there before Panama, before the Gulf, before everything. He opens his eyes. Place has ghosts for me too. 8 of them, all buried in Arlington because I couldn't save them. Brennan's ghosts. Yeah. And when we find him, when we finally get him in a room where he can't hide behind rank or connections or classified protocols, I'm going to ask him one question. What question? Why, shush, not how, not when, just why. Why he decided 8 good men were worth less than whatever money someone paid him. Why their families had to bury empty coffins because the bodies were too torn up to recover. Why I've spent 33 years waking up at 0300 in a cold sweat because I can still hear them screaming. The plane levels out, reaches cruising altitude. And if he doesn't answer, Alara asks, then I'll make sure he never gets the chance to do it to anyone else. They fly in silence for a while. the drone of engines filling the space where words would be. Alara pulls out her tablet, opens the encrypted files, the ones she's been building for 3 months. Access patterns, financial transfers, communication intercepts, everything that points to Tower 4. But there's something else now, something that's been nagging at her since the detention cell, since the watcher showed her that Syria photograph. She pulls up the image again, studies it, the rooftop figure, too distant to identify, but holding something, a detonator maybe, or a phone. She zooms in, enhances. The image pixelates, but there's just enough detail. The figure's left hand is visible, and on it, a ring. Heavy, military style. The same ring from Hartwell's security footage. Tower 4 wasn't just coordinating the Syria attack. They were there, on the ground, watching, making sure it happened exactly as planned. Her hands tighten on the tablet. Boone notices. You find something. Tower 4 was at Syria, not coordinating remotely, actually present. They wanted to make sure my team died. Why go to that much trouble? Because we weren't the target. We were the cover story. She pulls up another file, the mission brief from Syria, the one Brennan modified. Our convoy was supposed to deliver medical supplies to a forward operating base. Standard logistics run, low risk. But Brennan changed it 3 hours before we rolled out. Said there was intelligence about a high-value target in the area. Wanted us to divert and provide security for a CIA team conducting surveillance. Let me guess, there was no CIA team. There was, but they weren't CIA. They were Tower 4 operatives using agency credentials. And whatever they were doing in that compound, they needed it to look like random insurgent activity killed a convoy that stumbled into the wrong place. Boone leans forward. What were they doing? I don't know, but the compound coordinates match a facility that was reported destroyed by coalition forces 6 months earlier, officially abandoned. Structurally unsound, off limits to all personnel. Except it wasn't abandoned. No, it was being used for something that required absolute secrecy, something worth killing 6 operators to protect. She closes the file, and whatever it was, Brennan helped cover it up. Probably got paid very well for his trouble. The plane's intercom crackles. 30 minutes to brag. Prepare for approach. Alara stands, moves to the small window, looks out at North Carolina passing below. Pine forests and red clay. Small towns and empty highways. Somewhere down there, Brennan is hiding. Probably thinks he's safe. Probably believes that 33 years of careful operation means he's untouchable. He's wrong. Master Chief, when we land, we go dark. New identities, new backgrounds. As far as anyone at Bragg knows, we've never met before today. You're a training instructor. I'm a trauma counselor. We cross paths occasionally, but we're not connected. Understood. But we need a way to communicate without electronic trails. Dead drops. Old school. There's a coffee shop off base called the Brass Kettle. Bathroom has a loose tile in the 3rd stall. We leave messages there. Check it every 3 days. Boone nods. And if things go sideways, there's a payphone outside the PX. You call this number. She hands him a card. Let it ring twice. Hang up. That tells me you're in trouble. I'll extract myself and meet you at the secondary location, which is Airborne Memorial, South End. There's a bench dedicated to the 82nd. We meet there at whatever hour matches the date. If today's the 15th, we meet at 1500. Simple, effective, hard to intercept. Boone takes the card, memorizes the number, hands it back. She tears it into pieces, lets them flutter into a trash receptacle. The plane begins its descent. Through the window, Alara can see Fort Bragg growing larger. Miles of training grounds, hundreds of buildings, thousands of personnel. And somewhere in all of that, someone wearing a Tower 4 ring, someone who thinks they're untouchable, someone who's about to learn what happens when ghosts come home. The wheels touch down with a screech of rubber on asphalt. The plane taxis toward a remote hangar, away from the main terminal. The kind of arrival that doesn't appear in any official logs. The ramp lowers, heat and humidity hit like a physical force. North Carolina summer. The kind that makes uniforms stack and tempers run short. A single vehicle waits. A plain sedan, government plates, no markings. A man stands beside it. Civilian clothes. Unremarkable. The kind of person you'd pass on the street without a second glance. But his posture gives him away. Military. Recent. Probably special forces, judging by the way he scans their approach. Looking for threats. Assessing exits. Dr. Sarah Mitchell. He looks at Ilara, uses the name from her new identity. That's me. And you must be Chief Instructor Boone. He nods to Garrett. I'm Agent Carlisle, Defense Counterintelligence. I'll be your handler while you're at Bragg. Officially, I'm a logistics coordinator. Unofficially, I'm your emergency contact if things get complicated. He opens the trunk. They load their minimal gear. Your credentials are in these folders. He hands them each a manila envelope. Dr. Mitchell, you're assigned to the Behavioral Health Department. Office in Building 4-1133. Your first appointments start tomorrow, but you have today to get oriented. Chief Boone, you report to the Special Warfare Training Center. Building 6-4402. Your class roster is in the packet. They climb into the sedan. Carlisle drives, takes the back roads through base, avoiding checkpoints, avoiding attention. General Hartwell briefed me on mission parameters. He says, you're looking for Tower 4 operatives. I've been compiling a list of personnel who fit the profile. Officers with long careers, multiple overseas deployments, access to classified systems, financial indicators that don't match their pay grade. How many names? Ilara asks. 47. That's just at Bragg. Cross-reference with the other installations, and we're looking at over 200 potential suspects. Boone whistles low. That's not a conspiracy, that's an army. Which is why General Hartwell wants you to identify the command structure. Find the person coordinating Bragg operations. Follow them up the chain. We don't need all 200, we just need the one who can lead us to the rest. The sedan pulls up to a nondescript apartment complex off base, the kind that caters to short-term military personnel. Nothing fancy, nothing memorable. Your quarters are separate. Dr. Mitchell, you're in Building C Unit 214. Chief Boone, Building A Unit 108. Keys are in your packets. Furniture is basic but functional. Internet is unsecured, so assume everything is monitored. They get out, retrieve their gear. Carlisle hands Ilara a final envelope. This is from General Hartwell. She said to open it when you're alone. He drives away without another word. Ilara and Boone stand in the parking lot, looking at each other. 3 days, Boone says. Brass kettle, loose tile. 3 days, and Master Chief, be careful. These people have been doing this for decades. They're good at spotting threats. So am I, Captain. So am I. He walks toward Building A. She watches him go, then turns toward Building C. Her apartment is on the second floor, up exterior stairs. The kind of place designed for function rather than comfort. She unlocks the door, steps inside. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, living room with a couch that's seen better days. Everything clean but worn. Temporary housing for temporary people. She drops her gear, locks the door, checks the windows. Old habits. Then she opens Hartwell's envelope. Inside, a single photograph. It shows a young woman in army fatigues, standing with 4 other soldiers, all of them smiling, young, confident, the kind of confidence that comes before you learn what war really costs. The photograph is dated 1989. Fort Bragg. The young woman is Hartwell, 30 years younger, before the stars, before the command. And standing next to her with his arm around her shoulders, a young officer with lieutenant's bars. Even through the decades, the face is recognizable. Silas Brennan. Ilara turns the photograph over. On the back, in Hartwell's handwriting, I trusted him once, loved him once, believed he was everything the Army should be. I was wrong. Don't make my mistake. Trust no one. Question everything. And remember that the people who hurt us most are usually the ones we never suspected. Burn it when you're done. M.H. She stares at the photograph for a long time. Hartwell and Brennan. Partners? Maybe more than that. 35 years ago, they stood together. Believed in the same things, served the same ideals. And somewhere along the way, he chose money over mission, chose corruption over honor, chose to become the thing they both swore to fight. She walks to the kitchen, finds matches in a drawer, turns on the stove burner, holds the photograph over the flame, watches Hartwell and Brennan and 3 other young soldiers curl and blacken and turn to ash, lets the pieces fall into the sink, washes them down the drain. Outside, the sun is setting, painting Fort Bragg in shades of orange and red. Tomorrow she becomes Dr. Sarah Mitchell, trauma counselor, someone who listens to operators talk about the things that keep them awake at night, someone who will use that trust to find the people who created those nightmares in the first place. Her phone vibrates. Unknown number. Encrypted message. She opens it. A video file, 30 seconds long, night vision footage, shows the exterior of her apartment building. The camera zooms in on her window, on her silhouette visible through the curtains. The timestamp reads 1847. 7 minutes ago, the video continues. The camera pans left, shows Boone's building, his window, his silhouette, then pans back, zooms closer to Alara's window. A voice, distorted, electronic. Welcome home, Captain Voss. We've been waiting. Fort Bragg has always been ours. You're not hunting us, you're walking into our house. And we're going to enjoy watching you realize that some ghosts can't be killed. They just wait in the dark. We'll be seeing you soon. Very soon. The video ends. She sets down the phone, walks to the window, looks out at the parking lot, the trees beyond, the gathering darkness. Somewhere out there, someone is watching. Someone who knows who she really is. Someone who's been 3 steps ahead this entire time. She picks up the phone again. Types a message to Hartwell. They know, maintaining cover anyway. Mission continues. Sends it, deletes it. Then she pulls the challenge coin from her pocket. The one General Crane gave her. The one her father carried through 3 wars. Persevere. She sets it on the windowsill, where anyone watching will see it. A message of her own. I'm not afraid of ghosts. I am one. And this ghost is done running. The darkness outside deepens. Fort Bragg settles into its evening rhythms. Training ending. Personnel heading to the barracks or off-base housing. The ordinary machinery of military life grinding forward. But in the shadows between buildings, in the spaces where security cameras don't quite reach, in the places where long careers have taught people exactly how to move without being seen, Tower 4 watches and waits and prepares. Because they've built this kingdom over decades. Because they've survived every investigation. Because they've buried everyone who got too close. One more ghost won't make a difference, or so they think. But Alara Voss knows something they don't. Sometimes ghosts don't come back for revenge. They come back for justice. And justice doesn't quit. Not until everyone pays. Not until the last secret is exposed. Not until Tower 4 burns to ashes and the names of every operator they killed are finally avenged. She closes the curtains. Tomorrow the hunt begins. Tonight she prepares. And in the darkness outside her window, someone wearing a distinctive ring lowers their binoculars, smiles, and makes a phone call. She's here. Voss is at Bragg, just like you said she'd be. The voice on the other end is calm, patient. The voice of someone who's been playing this game for a very long time. Good. Let her settle in. Let her think she's making progress. Then we'll show her what happens to ghosts who forget they're dead. And Boone, the Master Chief, he's been hunting me for 33 years. It'll be poetic when he finally understands that he was never the hunter. He was always the prey. The call ends. The figure pockets the phone, walks away into shadows that have protected Tower 4 for longer than most operators have been alive. But shadows can't last forever. Not when someone refuses to stop shining light into them. Not when someone decides that some prices are worth paying. Not when a ghost finally comes home. And Alara Voss is home. For the first time in 2 years. Back where she learned to fight. Back where her father's name is carved in stone. Back where it all began. And this time she's not leaving until it ends. However long that takes. Whatever it costs. Tower 4 thinks they've won. They're about to learn they've only just met their match. The night deepens over Fort Bragg. And in apartment 214 Building C, a woman who died 2 years ago stands at her window, looking out at the base that shaped her, preparing for the war that will define her. Ready, always ready, because ghosts don't sleep. They haunt. And this haunting has only just begun.